So I will
Yeah, we're
call the
recording.
meeting. I will call the meeting to order then. So it's good to see you all. I hope you had a happy and healthy Thanksgiving break, and you've eaten all your leftover turkey, because by now it's like going bad. You're only supposed to keep it for a few days, I think. So
It's in the freezer.
anyway, welcome.
There you go.
I think we're going to be very efficient with such a small group tonight. So I guess we can just start with our roll call. And Lexi O'Brien, I'm here.
Scott Gresh here.
Sloan Carfield here.
Joe Magruder here.
John Buck here.
Barb Strang here.
You don't need me to say me.
No.
No, but if you could introduce yourself, just since people that might see the recording later
Sure.
on Zoom won't know maybe who you are.
That's right. I am Captain Greg Perks with the Westford Groves Police Department.
Great, and it's wonderful. So are you officially our new liaison, at least until a new chief is appointed?
Yes,
Okay,
I am. And I have been appointed as the acting chief upon Chief Curtis's retirement, so I'll take that role.
Whoa. We gotta vote on that, don't we?
No vote for you.
I was not informed.
right. And who do I can't see the picture on my computer is so small. Who's sitting at the end of the table there?
John Sauter, Leopard Boutique.
Well, hello, welcome. Okay, so I think we've got our roll call taken care of. If somebody else pops in, we'll just add it to the record. So the next thing on our agenda is reviewing and approving the minutes from our last meeting, which Jill was gracious enough to run for us since I did not have a voice at all. And I don't know, did you all have a chance to take a look at that? Do you maybe want me to share it up on the screen?
Can you put it up on the screen?
Let me see if I have that ability.
I haven't been included on the email yet, so I don't have all.
Do you have it, Captain Perks?
I do not. I would have
You do
not
not.
been.
Oh, okay, so we.
Starting
yeah.
with the next meeting and that, I'll be on the email chain, and so I'll get all of that.
Yes, okay, hold on. I'm trying to figure out. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to share, boy, I'm not sure if this is the right one. I think, let's see.
Yeah, look like I just.
Hold on.
It was just a few hours ago.
Yeah. Is that, oh, good, this is it. I've got the right one. All right, so this is from our 10/24 meeting. Here we have the attendees. We approved the July minutes at that meeting. We had some past business. Got some updates to the webpage. We discussed some feedback form submissions. We talked about the shooting that had occurred on Tuxedo. And we talked about doing some FAQs on the website, about listening sessions, and maybe pushing those off to spring when we have a new chief. And then do we have a social media policy for board members? And there really isn't one. This one I might suggest a slight amendment. It was not my recollection that we said that no one from that we could never discuss on social media. It was, there's not a policy against it. I think we need to use a lot of discretion. And we do want to create awareness. We don't want to add to controversy, but there's something that we'll talk about later in the meeting today. But my understanding was that we didn't say we were prohibited from ever participating in the discussion. Does anybody else have a take on that?
I mean, it doesn't, the notes don't say that anything's prohibited. It was directly discussed that engaging was not encouraged, so. But
Oh, I had a different take on that. So
Um,
that's why I was asking the group for their take.
Yeah, I agree with that. We kind of left it at use your discretion and potentially even emailing like Captain Perks and Jenny before we were to respond or even say anything about PCB.
Right, absolutely. Taking screenshots and alerting the city and the chief about conversations that maybe were
And any,
concerning.
yeah, any response would be very like, here's our feedback form and kind of leaving it at that.
Yeah. But I just didn't want it in our record for the agenda that we can never engage, because I can just envision that there might be a time, and I'll tell you the reason why. There was a series of comments in one of the community forums after the incident that happened at Hot Shots, where there was a carjacking and a fatality. And the conversation was really disturbing. And I really felt it was important to voice my concern, because it was discussion of, all horse thieves should be shot. And it was getting very sort of vigilante justice and sort of gleeful, like, oh, good, the guy's dead. And I just thought that, I couldn't be aware of that and not just say, hey, I'm disturbed that my neighbors are talking in this way. And it was a traumatic incident, I'm sure, for the person who was confronted by thieves and who ultimately, shot someone, and that it's just not appropriate to talk about that incident in that way. So if we put in the record that we're not allowed to speak out, I'm not okay with that.
That's, I don't think we said you're
With
not
another
allowed.
Pardon?
I don't think we said you're not allowed, but it was just with caution. Cause I'm more than positive, the comment that I made was sometimes the Times take information straight from Facebook and print it as an article in the paper.
Yes.
And so that's, to me, that's dangerous.
Well,
Totally.
I think it was more also in the form of representing PCEB in those discussions, as opposed to you're not losing your First Amendment rights to have speech. It's more
Okay,
it says here, social media policy for board members representing PCEB at events. Discussion was had regarding increasing awareness of PCB without engaging directly on social media. Right? So
Yeah.
we're trying to increase the awareness of us without directly engaging with issues that might be beyond any one of us individually engaging on behalf of the board. Was my
Okay.
take on that.
I understand your interpretation now. So
Okay.
yeah, as long as it's saying, yes, when I was commenting in social media, it was not as Lexi, the chair of the PCEB. It was just me as a community member. So as long as we're clear on that, and I'm fine, I don't think the PCEB really needs to go out there and be engaging in those conversations. I agree that that is risky.
And the other thing is, when you do comment, you can say, I'm speaking as Lexi, a community member, or I'm speaking for the PCEB. You can distinguish when you do feel you need to say something and it may be misrepresented.
Yeah, and I didn't, when I did that, I was very conscious of just being a community member and not as a representative. So, okay, well, as long as everybody's comfortable with, how we're interpreting it here, then that's not a change. I had a typo on number G. Discussion was had regarding the role. I think there it should be ROLE rather than ROLL. That such a minor thing, but I was an English teacher first, so.
I'm glad you're here.
Does anyone have any, sorry to make that so long of a conversation. Are there any changes additionally to that, or Does someone want to move to approve them as amended with that spelling correction?
Lexi, I have a comment about
Yes.
letter G.
Uh-huh.
I think, I'm not so sure that the anti-group that's listed there is everybody.
That was
might be
directly-
mentioned.
Barb, that's directly off of the agenda, so that's why it's listed like that, so that that it goes in step with the agenda, so that,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
So
I'm
that's how it
thinking
was listed in the agenda, that's how it's listed.
That's how it's listed
Minutes.
here.
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't think it was everybody. So,
Everybody, I'm not sure where is
I'm-
everybody.
in other words, what was like, what she was saying that was part of the agenda. Maybe that's what I have a problem with it. I don't think it was all inclusive. There are hated groups that are not listed there. So I'm
Oh,
wondering,
absolutely. Yes, I do agree with you there, Barb. Those were, and if I failed to be totally inclusive there, I had heard of some very specific instances where, you know, it was in particular a Black Lives Matter sign and transgender rights, and, you know, we'd seen some anti-Muslim things in the news. So these were some that were top of mind when I wrote the agenda, and it was not intended to be inclusive of every possible group that could be a target of hate.
okay, thank you.
So. All right, does anyone move to approve the minutes with that one spelling change?
Move to approve. Scott.
I second.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to.
All in
start
favor?
sharing,
All
so-
Aye.
Oh, yes, sorry, I went too fast. So focused on getting the technology right that I forgot to let us all vote. So yes, I also. All righty, community feedback from the online forum. We have a few of those that came up, and hold on. I can share those in a jiffy. I just have to find, there's the screenshots I took of them. No, is that it? Let me. Could swear I had them. All right, here we go. So we've had 3. Well. All right, now I gotta share my screen again. Here, let me get this. Okay. Can you guys read these? Is it big enough? These are
No,
just
Captain
shots.
You may move that.
Here you go.
Is that a little better?
Yes.
That's good.
Okay. So I'll just be able to tab through these and share with you. So this first one is kind of funny because they're like, the person wants to know if, oh no, this is if we're going to be able to vote to decide if he continues his duty or if another officer can come, or if another officer will be allowed to serve. I haven't heard back directly from the city on this, but obviously Chief Curtis gets to retire and there will be a process for finding his replacement. Dr. Peoples gave me an outline of what that process is. When she formalizes it, I would think it would be great for us to post what that is. on our website. And then this person who submitted the question anonymously will then be able to see the answer. But I think the short answer is the residents are not going to vote on the future police chief. But there was definitely for the fire chief, there was a process for gaining public input, and Dr. Peoples has that same intention for the police chief. So that was the first one. And
Great.
if we get the process,
yours?
we can.
You want votes? You feel good about yourself?
No, sir.
Hey, come on, John.
Okay, let's see. This next one, this is another, sorry, somehow this is another person that really wants Chief Curtis to stay, and I'm sure that he will be appreciative of the sentiment, because obviously there's a lot of love for him in the community. And so I just thought I would share this as just a testament to how much people feel he's had a contribution to Webster Groves. So there's that. And then the third one is a concern from a community member. Gardeners are dumping yard waste in the creek that's part of their property. And it's been happening consistently. And I believe that Chief Curtis was conferring with the city. There are ordinance violations, and I have not heard from the city, but they exactly what they plan to do, because they need to investigate it. But there is the name of the person who had the concern, and I'm certain that the city will be in touch with them to give a response. And I'll follow up with the city to make sure that, we can have some kind of, we had talked about in our FAQs, maybe have one question me about, differentiating between ordinance issues and who do you contact for things like this. I'm not certain that this is really a police department issue, but when we get the answer to that, we can post it. So those were the FAQs. And I'm going to stop sharing again. And I'm going to go back to the agenda so I can get on track. All right, this next item in the news is something new that Jill and I discussed when she was helping me type up the agenda. I'm still having some vision issues, and so she has helped me in getting some of these things together. And so in the news, I wanted to talk about, I believe it's important to our mission to be aware of incidences that affect the public perception of policing. They could be incidents of, positive role models and the way police are helping in the community. But sometimes there's negative coverage, and sometimes it's just coverage of an event, and boy, you just really wish the media had gotten it, a little bit different, a little bit more even-handed. So there were 3 particular instances, and one I've already mentioned today in our meeting. And that one I'm pretty sure you would be aware of, but some of these others, they might not have really come across your radar. And sometimes the conversations about these can feel a little uncomfortable, I'm sure, because we're all on this board, because we care about public safety in our community, and we're friends with our police officers. And so when we talk about this, it's not because we're trying to be critical. I think it's because we need to be aware of things that can affect the public perception. So the first one that I wanted to mention was the hotshots, the carjacking and shooting. And there was news coverage of that. And I am going to try to I don't need to share the story, I don't think. Are you all familiar with what happened, or Captain Perks, do you maybe want to share what it was briefly?
Anybody need any more information on it? It's still an active and ongoing investigation, so can't really give details out yet. Everybody did understand what happened?
I don't know what happened.
Well, that's long. There was a carjacking attempted robbery at Hot Shots where a victim shot and killed a suspect. And the other suspect was arrested as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sloan, you don't know where Hot Shops is, do you?
No.
No?
It's by CVS
They're messing with you.
in that mall.
Yeah. So yeah, and I thought, the news coverage of that was pretty even-handed. I learned something. I was not aware that a perpetrator of a crime could be charged for murder if their accomplice was killed in the commission of that same crime. And so that was news to me. So I learned something from the coverage, and I didn't feel like it was slanted in any way. And I actually appreciate that the identity of the person who was the attempted robbery was protected, because just me as a person imagining myself in that place, that must have been a really traumatizing incident for them. And so I don't know, again, when we were talking about when hate crimes happen, how do we respond to these kind of things? And I guess we just need to be aware and be able to respond with empathy to the people, the victim of the crime. And my hope is that people in the community, some folks I think were, I'm having a hard time articulating my concern. My concern was that this was a particularly frightening crime, and this happened right in our community. And we know that the perpetrator who was arrested, was armed, and that's frightening. But I worry sometimes that when we see the really scary stories in the news, to keep a sense of perspective about it. And so I wondered, after having seen the safety presentation last month, do we have statistics about how many of the carjackings, because we know that's skyrocketed, right? But how many, or at least the car thefts, how many of those actually, involve a gun and there's some violence that takes place in it? And I think you had some of that, Captain Perks, but I think it would be helpful. Jill and I had talked about, is there some way to place some framing around that so people understand, like, what is the rate of these kinds of crimes, so that people don't become overly fearful. They understand like how often something really, that serious happens in our community specifically. So I don't know if that's something that could be prepared for us to share, or your thoughts on that.
Well, we need to break it down more specifically, because and I can only give you statistics for Webster Groves. I obviously couldn't give them
Yes.
for the county or anything like that. But the difference in the crimes, a stolen auto is a separate crime than a robbery, which is what a carjacking is. So if
Yes.
you want, you'd have to get specific on what data you're requesting, because I'd have to break it down for all of that differently. And
Okay.
it's because a carjacking robbery is a violent crime versus a stolen auto is a property crime.
Okay. Well, maybe Jill and I can talk about that. And if there's anyone else in the board who's interested in helping to identify statistics that we think the community would be interested in and be better informed by having, it's really kind of the idea of distilling what was in your presentation last month into really just a few key points. And so we'll look at that and come back with some questions, I think. Another story.
Lexi,
that I
before
wanted-
before you move on, I guess question with the hash
Yes.
incident, is there anything, and I might be kind of grasping at straws here, but are we worried about like kind of what you were getting at, Lexi, with the vigilante idea?
Yeah,
Is there a message we want to put out there related to that? Or you kind of just like how to carry safely, or like, I don't,
oh, yeah, I see what you're getting at. Yeah, this
I'll
is.
second that sentiment. I think that, you know, we looked at your presentation at our last meeting and in nowhere did it say that one of the recommendations was to carry a gun and
right,
protect yourself, right?
right,
I mean, I am extremely grateful that this man was able to do that successfully, right? And I'm glad that nothing happened. But I also fear that same, you know.
yeah, that's kind of where I'm getting at.
Right,
Yeah,
the excitement that may come from
Yeah.
that and the just the sheer, I mean, a statistic, and I know we're only limited to what we have in Webster Groves, but you know, for how many people that are saved through the self-defense of guns, how many people are injured or killed accidentally
Mhm.
because of guns that are kept in homes or whatever it may be, you know, I just don't, I have I mean, I have that same sentiment, I guess. is what
Yeah, and I
I'm
guess this is
seconding.
inherently just getting political around gun rights, so it's probably just something to avoid, but,
Well, I
yeah,
just think of it
but
more as a
that's kinda what
parent,
I was getting
right?
at, yeah.
I have two young girls and the less chances there are that they can be an innocent bystander in a situation like that, you know, I have family that hunts and I'm grateful that they're good at using guns. But I can't state that every single person out there that owns one is competent enough to handle that situation the way that man did. And like I said, I'm grateful and I don't, I'm grateful he was able to do that and walk away safely, but I can't imagine that that's the majority of those situations, right?
Right, right,
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I also don't know.
Yeah.
I also think about him trying to shoot and miss and hitting somebody else, or,
Right,
you know,
right,
anytime a gun's fired in public, there's a chance it doesn't hit its target, right?
absolutely,
Yeah,
For
maybe
instance.
like what would the police, you know, as an entity, recommend for, you know, those kind of situations? I know, Sloan actually will be sharing very soon some, social media slides about what to do, you know, to try and be safe with the carjacking situation, but we did not touch on that particular instance. Other than, you know, if you're confronted with someone that's got a gun, you just give them your car and be safe. So.
Well, that's obviously not what he did, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. And so do the police have, is there something, is there a way for us without being political to say, hey, you know, that wasn't the case here? And it's apparently it was lawful for this person to have the gun and, you know, to defend himself in this instance, but be aware that there can be a danger to you being armed in itself, and the risk to bystanders, I think, is a really important point.
Well, this may be one of those things that we can't touch it without giving it the wrong kind of, you know,
Yeah.
attention, right? It's just by bringing it up, we probably, this is what we're thinking about with our
Mhm.
engagement and representing the PCEB is, you know, we want to be a positive impact on the community, and if we're only stirring up conversations that are gonna raise strife and political discord, I don't think there's any reason for us to
Yeah.
weigh
Yeah,
in,
agreed,
right?
agreed.
Right,
Yeah.
but it's important for us to be aware, I think, of sort of what happened and what some members of the community were saying about it. I'm sure there were many other perspectives on it, and then there are other people that may not even have been aware that it happened. So.
Well, I think the thing you're an English teacher and I'm an attorney, so I'm gonna nitpick. I think the thing you were referring to about the commission of a crime and the other person getting charged with the murder, it has to be a felony in order for that to be effective, right? you can't steal baseball cards and somebody gets shot and that's,
Oh, yes, thank you for providing that that correction or that revision to it. Yeah. So, do we want to discuss this any further or do we want to, shall we move on?
I mean, I think we can move on. I think Joe's kind of characterization is right. Like it's probably not our role to stir the pot there.
Yeah, yeah, I'm fine with that. Okay, I'm gonna go back to showing the agenda just so I remember where I was. Okay, so the other incident, and I'm not gonna pull up the story, I'm just gonna mention it. So Kirkwood Halloween trunk or treat event at a school. I think it was the middle school, but I'm not sure. A St. Louis County police officer, not in uniform, but he proceeded to fire shots at this event. He pulled out his firearm and was firing shots. I believe they said it was in the air. And they have identified that officer. He's no longer employed there. I'm sure it's a very, well, it's the son of the former county prosecuting attorney, Robert McCullough. And that's a really, I'm sure it was terrifying for the people at that event. My understanding is someone came then and somehow he was disarmed and he was arrested. But for people that are maybe already predisposed to maybe have a little distrust or some misgivings around the police, when a police officer who we've entrusted with so much authority and, you know, a lethal weapon, when a really, you know, a crisis like that, and perhaps it was, I don't know what caused it, you know, whether he had a mental health crisis or what, but that was a really frightening event. And so I think we need to be aware of how people in the community might be affected when they hear that kind of news. So it was just raising your awareness of that particular instance.
You know what? I was not aware of that incident. And I'm sitting here going, why did he shoot in the air? Was it to add a little fear on Halloween night? It's a spook.
No, it
it's
was
a witch.
not reported that way, Barb, the way it was reported, and it was in, you can look it up on KMOV. I mean, if you'd like, I can share the story on the screen.
Oh,
I
that's
did
okay.
look it up.
Just.
But he apparently someone heard him say, and of course, I guess this is hearsay. This was just in the story, but you're all gonna die.
Oh.
And he did not seem to be in a normal state of mind. So it wasn't, you know, just hijinks. I think it was a serious incident. And that there could have been danger to the kids and families that were at the event. So there's that one. And then, so I don't know if you have questions, but you can Google it. I'm sure it'll come up, and I don't know how it's proceeding beyond that coverage, saying that he'd been terminated from the police force.
well, that
And
is
then-
Kirkwood as opposed to Webster, but I mean, I'm more apt to think that is something. Police Community Engagement Board being our,
Right.
I mean, this is a very public. I personally, I mean, I think I'm completely respectful of people's personal issues. But when somebody's an entrusted person with the safety of the community and endangers the community instead, I mean, I prefer to have more information than less. And I don't feel like a lot, and maybe I didn't do enough deep enough dive. But I don't feel like a lot came out about what actually precipitated it.
Agreed. Like if it was actually mental health issues, you know.
No,
where-
that was speculation on my part.
Yeah, no, but to Joe's point, I don't think we know. Like there hasn't been a whole lot reported afterwards. But
followed it, and the latest update was, you know, a few days later, just reporting that he was been terminated, but nothing since
Yeah.
then.
Like maybe there's something to, you know, how do police officers maybe regularly go through mental health screening, if that's a thing, you know, like just kind of making sure that your mental health is there, you know, if there's resources available for, you know, seeing a therapist, being able to talk it out, just kind of that angle there.
You know what, Jill, too? When I'm hearing about this in the community, my concern is not on the police. It's more, gee, if I'm gonna run one of these, if I'm gonna be part of a trunk or treat event, I'm gonna screen my people. I'm going to get the gun carrying people in my group to make sure they know everybody who's coming in. Now, I know it gets a little chaotic as the children are going around, but I would be looking at it more from how can I safeguard? So if I'm told this, you know, community engagement, you know, with the police and all that, but from their perspective, I'd go back into what can I do to make sure this person is not part of my events? Does that make sense? It's the same issue, but just from a different perspective.
Well, right, if we have an active shooter situation that's not a police officer, the first thing we're hearing about is all the red flags in their background and whether or not there's any history of it, and I don't feel like any of that was, I don't know, again, I didn't get enough information on it, but I didn't know any of that information did come out as to, you know, what could this have been prevented? I know he was fired after, and maybe that was the right move, I don't know enough information, but I know if it's an active shooter and it's a member of the public, I begrudgingly hear more about the shooter than I do the victims. And in this instance, I don't feel like I heard much about what precipitated it, or if there was a history of it, or, and not to be, I even hate to bring it up, but the relationship with the former prosecutor just brings more ire in my mind.
If I may clarify some of that for you guys, the reason you don't hear of that is because you can't hear of that information. When you start talking about an employee, an officer's personnel jacket and stuff, that is confidential information, that is not public information. So any types of that kind of stuff there, the person has mental health issues, that cannot be released, that's HIPAA. So you will not hear about any of that, and that's why you never hear about any of that in the media, because they can't release that information. So, and to answer your question about what resources are available to law enforcement for mental health, there is an abundant amount.
Yeah.
We have, what's the, Aaron, what is the employment one, EAP?
Yeah.
Employee Assistance Program. We also have early intervention warning place in police that we monitor that behavior and that kind of stuff. We have multiple things that our officers can go to for counseling, even without a critical incident. Anything you're going through, divorce that gets offered. All that, we have tons of that stuff in place. I'm pretty sure Chief Curtis has probably discussed these things previously.
There's, there's probably. We can probably come up with the meeting date to let you know when it was, but there was an entire presentation
Okay.
done on. Like what's available to our officers
Right.
specifically, like outside of our department, we don't have any control, but.
Right, but for our officers.
But I can come up with what date that was, Jill, and you can probably.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
You know, I think.
Yeah, I'd like to post that on our site as well. I remember that presentation. And I thought it was
It's on
very
the
helpful.
city's website.
Okay, excellent. Well, then we
Or
could
on
find
their
it
YouTube page
cross-link.
Anyway.
Okay,
Lexi, I was just gonna say that, you know, whenever there's a shooter on a college campus, you know, that I get locked in on that right away because of my job. So I always follow that story very closely, and inevitably what always happens is I spend time with my staff and students and often parents. And their question is, although this shooting happened at Michigan State, what is gonna happen if it happens here? So I think my take on some of this is, you know, to Greg's point, we're only gonna have limited information on what actually did happen. We'll probably never know the full story and on any of these examples, right? But I think to acknowledge that they happen, but I think then to turn the narrative towards, and if it were to happen here, how prepared are we? What do we do? I talk to people about, we have done together a number of simulations, about every lock on every door in every building. I mean, you all know campus, and that's built up over years as we've had buildings. And I can talk a good game about, if this were to happen, here's how prepared we are, here's how much overlap there is. And so I think acknowledging it is one thing. I don't think we can resolve the tensions of, oh my God, it was a shooter at Hot Shots. I think that what we can resolve though is like, yes, and here was what the response was. Okay, this happened in Kirkwood, if something like that were to happen in Kirkwood, here's what the response could include, and to reassure people that, and I think that kind of engagement is sort of the positive spin on a tragedy, is that, when these things happen, they study them and learn from every single situation. I mean, in the Boston Marathon bomber, if you made it to a hospital, you survived. Every single person, because they were prepared, they had trained, they had programmed, they had done all that. So I think there's, for me, to acknowledge that these things happen very close to or right in our own backyard. But then I think the move for us is to say, and yes, that could happen here. And if and when it does, it's going to be awful, but here's how prepared we are. So we reassure people. Then if you have to go and organize an event and check up with every trunk or treater, that guy's going to have your back. And there's no question about that. So I think when these things happen, it's about reinforcing how prepared we have put ourselves in positions to be. And if something like that happens, it's going to be awful, but we're prepared to respond in a good way. And that's where I think an engagement board has a positive play. Acknowledge that it happened, but let's reinforce these things that are online, these things are on websites that help us know, okay, if shit does hit the fan, pardon my language, we're going to bring the caliber, and this is what it's going to feel like.
Yeah, is that something that maybe we could also, obviously our police department can say, here's, what would happen when that call was made, but also I think the school district, I'm sure when they learned of that news, Webster School District was thinking, oh my gosh, is there anything that we need to learn from this? At like the chili event that we just had, or there's all kinds of public events where, something like that could happen. So maybe that's something we can, Sloan, were you raising your hand? No? Okay.
No.
But I wonder if the school district also would have information that could inform something that, we could put together about response to, active shooters. And I know we have the presentation specifically about preparedness within the schools for it, but that was sort of a different situation.
Like I said, I will tell you that if anything happened in any of the schools, all the schools locked down, not just Bristol,
Right.
everybody locked out. And when I was
Right.
on the board, I mean, I get a email or text, whatever it was, to say lockdown, active shooter,
Right.
so let me know that's
And-
going on.
Yes.
So
And we had a whole presentation on that, which was really helpful. I think this instance was different in that it was outside of school hours and it was out in the parking lot. And so it would have, school wasn't in session. And so I wonder if, we have
Protocols don't
any
go away.
yeah, that's a-
context
It happens
to
on Christmas
add
Day, it's
around it, that would be an addition to what we could already share about the schools' policies and preventative measures that we already have and we're sharing on the site.
And the question she asked, going back to the Kirkwood with the shooter, is there, we hold trunk or treats here in Webster. What can we do to prevent that? And my answer is call the police and ask them what kind of security protocols can we put in place? We just had Captain Perks today at the Webster Rock Hill Ministries, the food bank that we give away food, but we looked at all of our safety precautions, of what we can do to eliminate any problems there at the ministry.
Yes.
We don't know, we gave over 250 turkeys on Thanksgiving, but all I need is one turkey to come up acting crazy.
I see what you did there. I got it.
So, but and I think that's a good thing for the PCEB to engage in all those type of public events, you know, like just some small, like having a Boy Scout meeting at, well, they can't have them at the schools anymore, I don't think. But, you know, wherever they have the Boy Scouts meeting, they need safety precautions. They need to know what happens if somebody come in that building. Meetings at churches at night. They need to know when somebody open that door, what to do. So there's a lot of, safety precautions that can be put in place. And like I said, we was there with 45 minutes, you know,
50 minutes.
and covered a lot of space and a lot of loopholes that we had in our building that we want to correct. So, but I think that's where the PCEB can be most involved.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a good point. It sounds like maybe we'll circle back and revisit this. It could be, you know, whether it's, I don't know if an FAQ is exactly it, but as you mentioned, Emerson, so what sort of safety protocols and what can you do to ensure that your public event is observing, you know, as many precautions as you can, and then what do you do if the unexpected does happen to be safe? So perhaps we can work with the police department on putting something together as a little statement. Does that sound reasonable? Okay.
I don't know, I don't think you can overlook the fact that this person there as a community safety?
No.
No, he was, my impression was that he was not there as security.
Okay,
And it wasn't my impression either that he was necessarily wearing a uniform, but I don't know. Again, that was,
Who's there as a parent?
He was plain clothes there as a parent with his family.
oh, okay.
They're all gonna die and shooting in the air. Yeah, some wasn't quite connecting.
But it is really, I wasn't here for that board meeting. It's really reassuring to me that all these supports are in place for our police, because it's, I can't, you know, teachers maybe, but I can't think of another group of people that we ask to submit themselves to such emotional distress and on a regular basis, and then hold them to such a level of regard, and just making sure that they're supported in the manner that you're saying that they are, is really reassuring to me.
I will, I'm gonna look around for that. I know Aaron said that, I think that was Aaron that was talking. I'll look around for it and see if we can't get that link added to the PCEB page as well, and I'll distribute it. I'll do a follow-up to this meeting so y'all can have that. I think that's important. Okay, and then there is one more. And I have to say, this is the one that disturbed me the most, even though, you know, the outcome was, you know, no one died, there were no shots fired. And I am gonna share my screen on this one because I would rather be accurate in describing what happened, and there was a news story about it. Let me see if I can't get to that page first. Here we go. Is this it? Nope. Well, gosh darn it. That's a word. That's. I think this is it. We're gonna try. No, that's not it. It's the wrong one. Golly. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about it while I'm trying to get the right screen to share. In Hazelwood, there was a traffic stop that occurred at night. And my golly, I've got a lot of windows open. No wonder Zoom is having a hard time with this. It was a traffic stop. The person was pulled over, I think, because they had either expired plates or no plates. And I I guess then they ran the person's license and they had an outstanding warrant, I believe in the city of Chesterfield, from a couple years previous for driving without insurance. And that the driver was asked to leave his car, and he left the car, and he protested that he had children with him. That he had children in the car. Here, I found it. There was video. Someone was there taping what was happening. The gentleman, the man was tased and put into a police car. There were multiple cars at the scene. And then all of the cars proceeded to leave with the children still in the car. The oldest child was 14 and the youngest was 1. And it's confirmed that it happened. And the police have said, well, we're doing an internal investigation. And I was so shocked when I ran across this story. Because I can just imagine that that's, you know, if you were a teacher or a social worker and you heard about children being left in a dangerous situation like that, you would be required to report it. And this is a case where the people that you would perhaps be reporting to are the ones that caused it to happen. And this was a pretty emotional story for me. And I wanted to share it with the group because I can just imagine parents who might already have negative perceptions, hearing this kind of news is very disturbing. And I have no idea what to do with this. You know, I'm sharing it with the group. I don't have an answer for, is this appropriate for the PCEB to talk about? You know, and it's obviously it's not our police force, but it's close to home. And I guess my point is, it's not just the cases of, you know, George Floyd that make national news, or Michael Brown, if you go back further. Things happen really pretty frequently on a national basis that can give some people legitimate cause to fear the police. And I have come to a sense over the past few years that I think in Webster Groves, just from my personal experience, we live in this bubble of, you know, we feel very safe and well protected and respected by our police officers, but that our experience isn't everyone's experience. And so that's why I'm bringing this up. And I don't know what else to do with it. So I'm going to stop talking now and let y'all take over with any thoughts you have.
I did know that this was significant to you, Lexi. And it also, so I reviewed it again today. And there were a few more details about the policemen who stopped the car, you know, their boss, or, you know, back at the police headquarters. But it ended with, there's an ongoing investigation and nobody has been charged yet. So it's not complete. And I think we might be doing a disservice to kind of project what would happen, should happen, has happened. I mean, yes, this man was stopped. He was at a funeral, had 4 kids in the back seat. The policeman said to the kids, is there anybody here that can drive? And they don't really give a response to that. No, a 14-year-old cannot. But I guess, I think I heard fiance, but anyway, this guy's girlfriend did leave, or eventually found out what happened and left the funeral and found the car, got in and drove them home. They weren't that far away from home. So nobody was hurt. I guess, and I don't know what will be done, or, you know, they should have never left the kids. I think that's what kind of resonates with a lot of us. You don't leave 4 kids in the evening in a car where nobody can drive with, and it even says the car door open. You know, what were they thinking? Did they call somebody who didn't show up or what? But I don't think we can put a judgment on it. You know, it certainly is awkward and wasn't right, didn't have closure. Why? I don't know, but I don't think we can jump in there and make a judgment.
I wasn't suggesting that we make a judgment about it. I mean.
And I'm not saying
we're
you were,
witnesses. Yeah,
you know,
I
I know it was, it grabbed you though.
yeah, it really did. It really affected me. Former teacher and, you know, a mom, and this was just really disturbing to me. So.
But I think the intent here, this is like trying to understand what others are thinking when they interact with the police, or if they never have interaction, what they might perceive just based on hearing things like this. So I think, while it's not our role to judge, I think it's kind of thinking about how community members, you know, where they may get their feelings about police, and how do we address that within our own community. But to Lexi's point, I don't know what the answer is like here, other than awareness of, you know, well, like, while we have a great police force, here's why someone driving through our community who gets pulled over may not have that same perception, and why that may just have, you know, tense from the start, right? Like that kind of friction from the start, and what could turn into a horrible incident, because of distrust of the police. So, yeah, but I guess per that article, you know, there is a policy not to leave children unattended. I don't know if that just goes back for our purposes of like the idea of Captain Perks we had of, you know, every so often reviewing body cam footage, of more just ensuring policies and protocols are in place and being followed. Maybe that's kind of a takeaway here, maybe not quite, but
The thing that stands out to me are the reason he was being pulled over, right? And I think going back to, we are the police community engagement board. And what I talked about earlier about what our expectations are on our police officers and the far and wide, you know, I think some of these things that are monetary and technical in nature, like a expired plate and not having insurance, while I completely understand having somebody on the road without insurance is a liability issue monetarily, and that person doesn't have an expired plates, which is another, you know, you call it monetary or responsibility issue. But, you know, having a police engage with that person in this manner, arresting them, disrupting their lives, does nothing to improve their ability to do either of those two things, right? And so I think that's a conversation I've always wanted to have about, you know, especially with technology, the way things are today, can't that person, I mean, why aren't we digging deeper, right, into what's going on here? Why are we not able to get this done? If you know, should we be, you know, I don't know. I don't know how to handle those situations, but these are the ones I think of the most that take the most police energy, have the worst reaction in the community, and seem to be self-fulfilling prophecies in relation to a person's inability to afford certain things, and how that leads down a road of police engagement that then makes them a criminal, when maybe the action that got them there in the first place had nothing to do with a criminal mindset, you know? So, I mean, that's what the biggest thing that stands out to me. What are we asking? Isn't there a way that could be handled other than, you know, stopping somebody in the middle of their day and subjecting their kids to that?
And honestly, I'm supposed to be the liaison and not talk, but I would tell you that at least about 4 or 5 years ago, the city was using, issuing tickets and things like that as a revenue stream for the city. And that was stopped. I mean, and it was the police, correct me if I'm wrong, they police stopped somebody for, you got unexpired plates. They just got unexpired plates, make sure you take care of it and go home. I mean, you know, it's that type of thing, even coming through the community. So our force have stopped doing all that small stuff and just focus on the big stuff. Because like I said, the city was using it as a revenue stream, and that's not the purpose of police engagement with the community. So I think they've come a 360 with how they handle individuals in the community and coming through the community. So.
Okay, well, I don't want to beat this to death. And I know it's, you know, a very sad and uncomfortable incident, but anyway, thank you for listening and participating in a conversation. I hope that we could maybe talk about policing in the news as a regular thing, and I hope that some of our stories to share will be about some of the good things that our police officers are doing, because there are many of them. But I brought this up in the interest of us being better informed so that we can truly understand, you know, different perspectives in our community as we think about how we can better serve. And John, thank you. I really appreciate having your legal perspective on the board. That's a wonderful benefit. Okay, now I got to get back to the agenda, and I'm going to try and move it along kind of quickly. Let's see. FAQs. Jill, did you feel like your FAQs were something that we wanted to share some of your questions and answers via email and
I
come
think-
back and talk about it? Or do you want me to show them on the screen? I know some of them were still seeking maybe more input from the police department.
Yeah, I think it's lengthy enough that I don't want to, you know, spend time pulling it up now. I think we can share ahead of our December meeting and ask
Yeah.
folks to take a look and maybe bring your thoughts to the meeting.
Okay.
and
Yeah, I'm
in the
sorry.
meantime- Yeah, sorry. Oh, in the meantime, I will, Captain Perks, I have a couple that I'll just shoot your way to see if we can flesh them out a bit more. And I'll just share the draft document with you in general, and see what you're thinking. We're thinking this would be on our webpage for PCB, and you'll see the type of questions there, but also going back to that online feedback form, including a section of, I have a concern about city ordinance, who do I contact, and kind of breaking it down into what the PCB is for and where they can go for other issues. That's part of it as well.
Yeah, and Jill did give this to me in advance of the meeting. I'm kind of at a belated Thanksgiving family activity in Kansas City, and as I was pulling together the email to send to everyone, I could not for the life of me find the email with the draft FAQs attached. And so apologies, Jill, and I appreciate your time in putting those together.
Nope, no worries. I can spend time getting some answers from Captain Perks, and then we'll share it ahead of December's.
Okay, and then we have some, gotta find my fifth image previews. Too many things. I have social media posts that Sloan put together. One of them is promoting our online form, and we thought that perhaps that could be, here we go, found them. This is the carjacking one, so I guess I'll talk about that, show you that one first. So these are some tips, Captain Perks, that we pulled from your presentation last month. And one thing that Jill and I and Sloan had all thought that maybe we shouldn't say from the PCEB, you know, maybe it's tips from the Webster Groves Police, or maybe it's just safety and prevention tips, you know, and we don't have to credit it to any particular person, but it's carjackings. And Lock your doors, be wary of surroundings, park in well-lit and populated spots. Alone and being followed, bumped, even if you're involved in a minor accident, don't stop if you're suspicious. Proceed to safety and call 911. And if threatened with a weapon, give up your car. Your safety is more valuable. Make note of the details and call 911 as soon as possible. So that is the first post. Shall I go back to the beginning, or do we have any comments on those?
I'd incorporate the logo into each one of them.
Okay. Anything else? This is the one with the most words. Captain Perks, if you have anything also that you think wording should be a little bit different. We were trying to be concise so we could get it into social media rather than a whole slide deck.
Sure. No, I think it gets the point across.
Okay,
Pulled right, yeah, pulled right from the presentation.
yep, okay, good. Well, we wanted to be sure we were representing it, accurately and concisely, so good. I think then we'll get the PCEB logo. I don't know if we had a smaller version of that, Sloan, or if it can just be, maybe it's just PCEB. So we'll take a look at that to get it on each slide.
Yeah, I can just put it in the corner, kind of like it is on the first one, just in all of them, if we want.
Okay,
Yeah, that's great in case anybody shares it.
okay. So there's that one, and let's see, I'm hoping that I can just tab over to, oh, and this one, here's the feedback form. This one's very simple. Aren't we cool? We've got both a short bit.ly link for someone to type in, and we've got the QR code. Feel very tech savvy there. But this is it. It was pretty simple. And that's something that could really be used at any time. So we would pass that along to Jenny Starkey to just use whenever, they have time. Do I have any comments on this one? Do we want to make any changes?
I like that. This could be adapted for a lot of usage if we need it in the future, like a little card or flyer, that we could use it for a listening session. I think that's all we really need.
Yeah, absolutely. This could be a little flyer that at listening sessions when we have them. Those could be out on a table. So awesome. Well, Sloan, great job. Thank you for putting these together over the
Thanks, Lon.
Those are great, Sloan.
Thank you.
all right. So those are about ready. Let me go back to the agenda. Okay, listening session. So we know that we're not going to try and get them done, during this holiday season for sure. And it probably would be good to at least have some idea of how the search for the police chief is going. But Jill and I were thinking that there's really quite a bit of coordination that we could do in advance. And we're recommending that we have some committees to do that. So our thoughts, and you may have different thoughts, we thought one group could work on the logistics of where and when could those be held to make sure that we are inclusive of all the different neighborhoods. And also, at the particular session, how would we capture feedback? Are we just going to have a couple members and we take notes? Is there some way that we could use an iPad and have the feedback form and actually type it in so that we've got, a way to capture it digitally and share with the larger group and with the police department or whoever else, it might be relevant to. So logistics, we thought also communications, and that would be more like, how do you promote the event? Is it in do we write something for, is it the Friday page, Jill? I can't remember,
Yeah.
but something in the Webster Kirkwood Times. Do we do yard signs? Webster loves yard signs, are there other, ways that we would want to promote it? And then another committee we identified was, is there some form of outreach that we can use where we can leverage other organizations in the community to help us get the word out? And what are those organizations? And having a plan for reaching out to them. And for that, it might be a good idea to have a tentative schedule, for those listening sessions. So I wanted to ask if I have any volunteers for a role like that, or either one of those three, or if there's something else that you think we're missing that's really important to consider.
Lexi, I guess I think a conversation for us would be good to have about what are the populations we want to reach out to. The last time we did this survey, 70% were over 45 years old and Facebook users.
Yes.
And so, I think we've got to go into the high school. We should go to Hickson. I think, but I don't know what all that should include. Are there churches that are pretty active that would have a congregation that would want to hang out? Do we invite and do an open house with one of these meetings? I think if we can think about from what representations do we want to get feedback from, and not just let it show up. Because I'm afraid if it shows up, it's going to be the same problem we had with the survey we did, which was understand what the adults want, but have no other real connection to what the rest of the community could care about.
Right. So if logistics is where and when, the bigger question is who and why, right? That's so.
I want to, if I may mention also, I think maybe we can not overcomplicate it by just planning to do one at the high school and just get it done, kind of like we did at Webster.
Yep.
The university, where we just do it and go to that direct group, and it's almost your practice session for a listening session, rather than dragging it onto all these different groups we're considering. And then I feel like in the last 5 years, we've been talking about that relentlessly, about all the groups we might go to, and we don't end up going to any. And if we could, that we could just push forward on that in particular as a specific item, that might make sense.
Yep, I agree, Scott.
Okay. Do we want to start with does someone want to volunteer to get a group and have just a list of who are all the different populations that we want to reach and where we think we might reach them? And that would be a good place to get us started. Or do we want to start working on a list right now? It's at 7:43 and we generally try to end by 8 o'clock. So it's getting kind of late in the evening to actually get work done. I've heard several suggested already, so I would be happy to follow up with an email that has a few of those. And, perhaps we could add to that list that way. My hope is that we could get some work done and actually have something to respond to at our next meeting.
Did I hear, Scott, that we've done one at Webster University before?
Maybe before us.
Okay.
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we did a very successful one at Webster University but there weren't a lot of participants. I wish it was bigger, but it was during the beginning, through the COVID era time. But it felt like we had the most engagement of listening, and had some officers involved, and had some great discussion.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
And Scott, maybe I heard you say, let's do one. Let's kind of do one, see how it goes, and then from there go, well, there were no people who represented this group. What about this group over here? What about, kind of filter it out from there, but actually, instead of doing all this planning now, capture all these groups, choose one, do it, and then look at it with some feedback to say, all right, let's improve on this. Let's go to these 6 other places. That's kind of what I was hearing from Scott. Maybe I'm wrong. but-
Yeah, no, that's what I was meaning to say, because I feel, again, the last 5 years, we've had lists of 20 different groups we might go to someday. And, then we mull around on it and think, oh, it'd be cool to go to a church, it'd be cool to go to here and there, and maybe some business groups, and we sit and talk about all these places we might go, instead of just picking one and going with it. And perhaps the email that could go out is prioritize one or at most 2 and go do one.
Yeah, and Scott, are you thinking like a whole separate listening session, or just joining like an existing meeting and giving a quick like, here's who we are, here's our online feedback form, tell us what you think. It's like where I'm going with that is I feel like just doing a listening session, I think it's a lot more work to just do one without planning, and if that makes sense, like I wouldn't wanna just kind of do one and then no one shows up because we didn't put the effort into like talking about it. But if we just like join like the next Webster Grove Student Council meeting where they already have a meeting and there's already people there, and we give a 5-minute spiel about who we are and what we want out of it, like that would be, I think, an easy thing to do and only requires one of us to go to it too. Is that more what you're thinking, or was it more like let's have a listening session at the high school and see how it goes?
Are you there? I don't, Oh.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm sorry,
but
we're breaking up.
it's
Scott.
freezing up on me.
Okay,
But yeah, yeah, I was just thinking, again, just it was amazing how limited planning led to quite a lot of engagement, even on a small scale. But I do think adding into something that already exists makes sense. But I just worry we get caught up in over planning,
okay.
when it might be relatively not too. I kind of did a lot of that. I just talked to a few of the professors for a little bit at Webster U, and got it going with very limited amount of planning. Someone on the fly, I felt. I think we could have done better if I planned, had it more planned ahead. And certainly that won't hurt, but it would be good to tie it to something like a student council or what have you, and maybe Sloan or whomever has better ideas. I just think it'd be good to just pick one and run with it and give it a go as an attempt.
will there be any kind of public forum for what the city's gonna do in regards to choosing the next chief? Is that gonna be? I'm just going from the 2 of the 3 inputs we had in our anonymous were related to people want to voice their opinion about this process. And if our job is to listen, I'm just reading the regulation, it's really widely written as to what our job here is, to just provide a forum where people feel comfort, safety, and sharing, right? This is something people already want to talk about. And, I know it's not our job also in here to intervene in personnel issues or anything like that. But if there is something like that going on where there's going to be a discussion of what the process will be, offering a place right immediately after where voices can be heard could actually be a help.
Yeah.
To diffusing some of that or responding to people,
Yeah, I think
directing them in the right direction.
Ted, to your point, I think it would be easy for this group to come up with the 10 questions we're gonna ask at every single listening session. One of those can be, what are you looking for the next chief of police? Or we can kind of gather some information about that, but I think it'd be pretty quick for this group to figure out, all right, here's 8 to 10 questions, get through 8 of them. So then, because that's gonna help the validity of the data that you bring back if you're asking to, so I think to structure it in a small way, to Scott's point, so it's not overcomplicated, but we all go and deliver the same half dozen to 12 questions or whatever it is. We incorporate something that we know people are gonna wanna talk about, and that becomes one of the agenda items for that half hour or whatever.
You can even expand, we're gonna have a new police chief. We know what the old one was, no emphasis on old.
I'm gonna go.
The previous.
You're doing so well.
It'll only get better. But we know what he did. He was well liked. So we can say what of what we saw in Police Chief Curtis would we like in the next one? And I think from there, we could branch out into different areas. I think it would be a great springboard. And I agree with you. 2 out of the 3 comments had to do with, let's choose, or we like.
I do wonder if the same person though who did both those comments.
What?
I wonder if it's the same person who submitted those, but I don't know. Well,
Act
you
like
let me
they
know.
both have to retire, but you know.
But yeah, no, all good points. Yeah.
If-
I would say my only concern with us raising those questions is, and I'm sharing here the email from Dr. Peoples, I do not want to step on the city's toes as far as their process. And so they do plan to have community survey. They also will have community stakeholder listening sessions. So I would want very careful to coordinate with Dr. Peoples
Sure.
as far as us raising soliciting feedback
Well, I mean,
about that.
there's already a listening session on there. I mean, if we attend that in support of the police in that regard, doesn't it also raise our people knowing who we are in relation to this?
I think that's a great idea for us to attend really any of the public listening sessions that are held for this. I mean, for my own personal information, I want to go and hear what people have to say. And who knows, if there are people after there and we're, wearing our little lanyards and, people want to talk, then I think that would be a fine way to gather some informal feedback. I just think our listening sessions that the ordinance requires us to have probably need to be separate from these that are held for the new police chief.
It
But
does
I
say citizen
could be
only
wrong.
listening session.
It does list specifically, and this may be hard for you to see. Whoa, okay, that got really
It'll
big.
be 3 or 4 sessions. We're gonna have 3 or 4 finals.
Yeah, they were, sorry, I don't know, I'm just gonna stop sharing. I can forward that email and I can ask Dr. Peoples if they've gotten to the point that they actually have set a schedule. And I'll be sure to share, anything I learn from her about that.
If we follow the
it's fine
same
with us
process as we
asking.
did with the fire chief, it was very intense. I mean, it was a lot of listening sessions, a lot of feedback. The council, we came in dead last. After we reviewed all the comments from the listening session, from the community surveys, and then we, interviewed all 3 candidates for fire chief. So it was done with a lot of transparency, so you'll be able to see what was going on. I think even the results of the surveys was posted, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And she said she definitely intends to follow, a similar process. There is it'll be a national search, and there is a recruitment agency that will be running that search. But obviously following, the city's desires to have a lot of community input and transparency about it.
And understand the council, we're very cognizant of not stepping over our boundaries, getting into day-to-day operations with personnel.
Yeah.
Police chief, fire chief, all report to Dr. Peoples.
Yeah.
Only when we hired Dr. Peoples that, we had that final say.
But, if we're at an event and someone chooses to share, feedback with us, I think that's fine. I don't know if I want to have, like, if we have 10 questions that we have at our feedback sessions. I don't know if it should be, what do we think, you think we should look for in our next chief? And I think if somebody says, what about this police chief? Acknowledge, oh yeah, that's really an important search that we're doing. And if you want to offer some feedback, maybe there's an online form that the city has, or just tell them they'll be doing a survey. We should probably find out what the best response would be to questions about that
They can respond to that survey. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, things are moving fairly quickly.
Yeah.
So I
It might
anticipate
almost be
maybe,
done by
no, I think maybe around February, we have, probably have some
Okay.
kind of decision which way we're gonna go.
Okay.
I mean, that's my guess, because.
Yeah, I know I had heard March.
Mhm.
Hoping for a conclusion by March, I think is what Chief Curtis had said when he was sharing with us earlier, so.
He don't care, he's going to Florida.
I can't believe he makes an announcement and then he's not gonna come back at all. It's like, so I will get the date and time, Emerson, of when you're gonna do the recognition for him. with the
It'll
city
be
council.
December the 5th at the council meeting. I'm
December
sure
5th.
probably. It might be doing a work session, I don't
I
know.
can pull it up.
Oh, good.
Email went out today.
Can I ask a question about semantics here? And you're all gonna laugh because it's like obvious, but we are appointing a police chief. The police chief is not elected. Has the police chief ever been elected?
Cannot by our charter.
Okay, that's just our charter, so other groups,
Other cities, whatever
They
government
can do
structure
what
they
they
have is how they do that. I can tell you there's only 2 elected police chiefs in St. Louis County. Only 2.
okay.
Eureka
They're all-
and Saint Anne.
what's
All the other
one?
police, Saint
Eureka?
Anne, Eureka and Saint Anne, all other police chiefs are hired by a city manager or whatever they call it for that city.
Okay, okay. Do you know how long that's been in effect?
Since the city was chartered.
Since the beginning, the charter hasn't changed. Okay,
That's why we're looking at it now. 1955, 54, 55.
Can I jump on the uninformed questions? Difference between a sheriff and a chief?
Huge difference. Sheriffs are elected.
Well, right, that's why I asked, because I know they're elected,
Yeah.
but is there sheriffs in the county as well? No. Is that?
There is one sheriff. St. Louis County Sheriff's Office has a sheriff, but they don't do law enforcement. They serve papers, subpoenas and that kind of stuff.
law enforcement is the key. The
Okay.
sheriff is law enforcement person, but we don't have one that does that. It's our police chief.
Right. Now, outside in the other counties in the state, the sheriff is law enforcement. They don't have maybe a police.
Right, because our current
Sheriff.
governor is next sheriff, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I don't really understand all that.
Completely different.
Politics.
It's politics and messy when it gets into that. And sheriffs are all part of the Sheriff's Association, where police chiefs are all part of the Police Chiefs Association. And it's a
So they're completely different groups,
completely different groups.
However, we have one that does part of the sheriff's job.
but only one part.
Not really.
Some-
Our police chief does law enforcement.
Police chief is actual commissioned law enforcement and everything. The sheriff is, and the St. Louis County is
Right,
process server.
but I'm talking about sheriffs outside of.
They're
us.
law enforcement, like the
Right.
police chief.
That's exactly what I was.
That is,
thinking.
so I'm trying to understand how that
Yeah.
works and why it's different in a metropolitan area as opposed to.
St. Louis City got sheriffs.
Correct.
They do.
Same thing, but they're process
They
servers.
just process servers, stuff like that.
Thanks.
I knew them all by name at one time. I wouldn't brag.
All right, so
Understand that?
on December 5th, Dr. Peoples put out the city council during the work session. At 6:30, there will be cake and punch. During the regular meeting at 7, there will be proclamation and presentation and gifts and all that stuff.
Yeah. So that's
So the
doing
fifth-
that's starting the work session.
Right.
So I know I plan to attend and, I hope that any of you that are available at that time, come join in person. And of course, the council meetings also are available virtually, so you can join via Zoom as well if you can't get away to come in person. Is there anything that we would like to do? Do we want to get a card or, write some kind of, statement or sentiment to him? I've never done this before, so do any of you have suggestions?
What does he like? I mean, and that sounds silly, but like to go out to eat, play golf.
Bass Pro gift card.
He's a golfer. I can tell you that the city is going to present gifts to him as well as the Police Officers Association. And he will be taken care of in his retirement gifts.
But just
That's great.
something unique
He-
from us.
Yeah.
You know,
Come up with
that's,
something.
that's, it wouldn't be, doesn't have to be the biggest, the best, but just something. Hey, you know, that little board I used to meet with on Tuesday, they were all right. They gave me
Appreciate the
a
service.
fruit basket or
He
something.
does golf. I'm good.
We only have a week to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of time. Would we want to do, I mean, is there, I know absolutely nothing about golf, so I wouldn't know what to get for a golfer. I
If you
think
want to get a
the
golf,
idea of
something golf,
going
just
out
give
to
them a gift certificate to Golf World or Galaxy Golf or whatever it is. Let him go get his own stuff.
Yeah, that would be another idea, or the idea of just a nice, a nice place to eat dinner. Maybe a gift certificate for a restaurant. He's not leaving town. I mean, he will still live here in.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it. He's out of here. So, well, maybe,
Does he like to
let's
read?
confirm that's what we want to do. And then do we want to just have one person collect money? Like I use Venmo all the time for people that want to contribute to group gifts. So do we want to do something like that? I am out of town right now. And so I am not going to be back to be able to pick something up myself. I could certainly, get a card where I am, but I'm not anywhere nearby to go to the local golf places.
We've always done this, I don't know that much about Police Chief Curtis, but I just asked Greg, is he married? And he's like, well, yeah. Sometimes to contact the wife is a real good resource, just to say, hey, I know he's gonna get a million things. He's retired, he's, well loved. Do you have any suggestions? And she may say, he wanted a subscription to that magazine.
Another option is that we wouldn't be favoring anybody other than Webster, it's just Webster Grove gift certificates. Those are really easy. City Hall sells them. You can use them in most businesses in Webster Groves. If he wants to go out to dinner, then
There you
we're
go.
not favoring one restaurant over another or anything.
I like that a lot. I wasn't even aware that we had it. And
We
now
set the bill
we're
up for
tying
busy.
in support of the city.
Community engagement board.
Oh,
Community
yay, that makes it easy. So,
And a card.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I can pick up a card. I don't know how we're all gonna sign it unless, I could come early on December 5th. And, I don't know how we would get people to sign unless we get together and physically do it. But, we could sign, from the Police Community Engagement Board as a group and put that certificate in it. And if we want to agree on an amount, I mean, I could get it and collect money later, or if somebody else wants to do that, I won't be back in town until Thursday.
I'll gladly kick
But
in
it's
20
still
bucks if you
time.
want to send me your Venmo.
Okay. Well, what I'll do is I will email after this meeting to really the whole board, because not everybody was here tonight. Maybe there are people that couldn't be here that want to contribute, although I can't really think of who that might be because we've lost a few members, right? But
Some of those
anyway, I'll
folks
send
might
that out and I'll give my Venmo.
I bet they would want to contribute.
Yeah, I bet they would. I'll even, I will include people like Katie
Yeah,
that have rotated off.
Katie and Kevin.
Centron and,
Yeah.
and Kevin, okay. I don't have emails for anybody that has come off like before my time here. I think those are the only ones though. Oh, Reverend, so what is his name? Gray? Reverend
Eric
Eric Hayes. Eric
Hayes,
Hayes.
yeah,
Okay,
and
Katie will have all those old emails, the city
Okay.
clerk.
Oh, yeah.
all right. Eric Hayes, Katie, Kevin, Centron. Okay. So I will send an email out. I'll do my Venmo. And however much I get contributed as of, let's see, it'll be Monday, because I ought to be able to get it. I'll be in town. So the city council meeting is the 5th. So however much I have as of the end of day, Sunday, December 3rd, I will take to City Hall and go buy that gift certificate and put it in the card. And I can't think of any way to like get this card to you guys for other people to be able to sign.
Could you leave it at the front desk at City Hall and we could all stop by? Like, if you could drop it
What
off.
do you think,
Friday,
Emerson?
well,
Is that too much
I
to
don't know.
ask?
No, it just go through, Katie. Katie will tell you the best way to get it done. You
Well,
can just come up to her office and sign it.
and Katie,
Yeah,
to hold card for sign.
yeah.
Cause I know I can't make that meeting, unfortunately.
Right, right. Okay, good. Well, that's what I'll do then. I'll email Katie. And you're talking about Katie, I'm gonna say her last name wrong. Nakazoon? How do you say it?
That's why I stick with Katie.
You know what? Somebody's gotta know how to say this woman's name. I guess I'm gonna.
Nakazono.
It's Nakazono.
Nakazono. Zone O. All right. Names are important, y'all. All right, so cool. That's the plan then. I'm gonna email my Venmo to everybody that's on the board now and has been there for the past couple years. And if you want to contribute, you can, and I'll have a card. And I will need to get the card up there sooner because I can't just have the card up there on the 3rd. So I will get the card up there as soon as I can. Hopefully Thursday day, because that's when I get back. Does that sound good? Give everybody a few days to get it done. All righty. That is the agenda, the end of my agenda, y'all. Our next meeting is December 26th. Somebody look at a
That's a
calendar.
city holiday.
City holiday, we're closed that day.
We're closed that day. So what do we want to do?
Meet January something. I say skip the
Wait
Jan.
until the
skip the
official
December.
date, or do we want to meet sooner? Because we'll have missed a December meeting.
How many are we supposed to have in a year? 9?
There's not a requirement.
There's only been one missed this year, so we're well in the clear.
We
not
missed
to do
September. That's
December.
the only one.
Yeah.
So we
Good.
just skip it then, and we would meet then next on January 23rd, which is the 4th Tuesday of the month. Somebody check me because I get these dates wrong all the time. I'll give the wrong day or the wrong number.
We're supposed to have a minimum of 9 meetings per year.
We've only missed one this year, so we would be fine. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that anyone would be upset about missing December, right?
That's
But-
right.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm the staff liaison for the Traffic Advisory Commission. They took December off. So.
Trade association to go.
I mean, you know, he was.
right.
Trade association.
So, I am going to, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this. The agenda is posted. I said next meeting is December 26th, question mark. Do I need to note on the agenda or just be in the meeting minutes that it'll say, hey, we decided not to have December 26th
There you
that
go.
Right.
Yes.
as scheduled on January,
Question answered.
Tuesday, the 23rd.
Yes.
Okay, good. So that's how we do it.
Maybe as an alternative or kind of an interim, we can send out like the FAQs and
Oh, very
anything
good.
well in advance of January's meeting, so you'll have time to marinate over them and.
Right. My second meeting, I try to skip
Okay.
this one.
All right.
Why are we having all these
So
meetings?
Next, I
Okay.
know we're behind, I mean, we're working. I'd like to make a couple of city updates real quick.
Oh, no way.
Sorry.
always
No, I'm teasing
Well,
them.
Make it good, you get to it.
Yeah, I just want to let you know that the city council is looking at the Traffic Advisory Commission parking proposal. So we're looking into that, trying to get some more feedback from, I think from the school district. That's just to solve some of the parking problems around in the general area. And two, we designated the structure of 15 Marvin Court as a historic landmark. You can look at the city website to see the story behind that. And also, we at the third reading on a block grant we're going to receive for design and construction of resurfacing the path and curb and gutter from Elm Avenue from Glendale Road to Watson Road. So it's going to be a brand new fixed, and I think we're going to have a walking, I think we'll have sidewalks.
Sidewalks.
Yeah, sidewalks.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and we did the first and second reading of the general obligation bond. That's the 22.1 million, no increase bond that we're putting forth for the recreation and parks for next April.
When does that Elm project start?
You know, I don't know.
Disrupt like the traffic.
Yeah, it's gonna be a disruption, but I think they'll be pleased when they.
Yeah, it won't start to 25, I think, or
Yeah.
20, yeah, it's a few years out.
Yeah, it's got the grant, but they gotta give us the money for the grant. and all
Right.
that
If I can remember my bike riding days, that's a hard area to navigate.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
So that was only three major items that we talked about at the last city council meeting.
I had heard from a community member about the parking situation.
Mm-hmm.
It was rather heated. And there was an effort to get residents to write letters to the city council about that. I don't know if you,
We did receive quite a few letters. Unfortunately, it's only from one block.
yeah, well, maybe that's the block that's being parked on a lot.
But
So
I was with the school board for 10 years. And parking for the high schoolers have always been a problem. You know, and one of the comments that was made, several comments made at the, it appears to be a school district problem, not a city problem. And that's why I think the school district needs to be at the table to help solve that problem. The city shouldn't do it. Not by itself, at least.
Yeah.
City has no land. I mean, we're landlocked, you know, just to take a piece of land and surface it and make it a parking lot. Just not fair. Probably a lot of people don't know, but school district owned land just south of the parking lot across the street from the high school. But it's just a small strip of land that nothing be built on it. Maybe about 5 or 6 parking spots, that's about it. So, but we're looking at the program, I mean, the proposal to see how all of that can play. Somebody's not gonna like it, somebody's gonna be unhappy. So We're just gonna take a good hard look at it. That's it.
Move to
Well,
adjourn.
Second.
Second to adjourn, third.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. All
Good
right,
night,
thank
everybody.
you all. I appreciate.
John Sonner.
Good to see you.
Good to meet you.